My name is Juliet Vaughn. I walked into my sister's wedding completely alone. Not because I didn't have anyone to bring, but because I wanted to remind myself that I could stand strong on my own. Walking into that room felt like stepping into a courtroom. Everyone looked at me like I was guilty. Guilty of being over 30, unmarried, and too successful. As I entered the big ballroom, people turned to look. Not in a nice way. I heard whispers. I saw my sister's new in-laws judging me, checking out my dress, my bare hands, and the missing ring. One woman even said, loud enough to be heard, "Poor thing. Still no one to bring." Vanessa, my sister, didn't even glance at me. She was all smiles, posing with her groom and his proud family. And me? I was the guest they hoped would disappear into the background. I thought about leaving. I probably should have. But I didn't. I stayed. I stared back at every mocking face. Then, something unexpected happened. An older man at the center table stood up. He had silver hair and serious presence. I knew who he was. Edward Sinclair, the groom's uncle, a powerful name in business. He looked right at me. Then he bowed. A slow, respectful bow. And just like that, the room went silent. Every whisper stopped. Growing up in my house felt like being on a stage I never asked to be on. Vanessa was the golden girl. Blue eyes, blonde hair, always getting attention. At family parties, she was the star. I was the quiet one, always told to let Vanessa shine. I liked numbers, ideas, inventions. I took apart our microwave at 10 and built a timer oven by 14. While Vanessa practiced cheerleading, I read math books under my blanket. My parents didn't stop me, but they didn't get me either. "You'll grow out of that tech stuff," my mom once said, right before grounding me for skipping a school dance to go to robotics camp. Vanessa got praise for being pretty. I got ignored for being different. As we got older, we grew apart. Vanessa married early. Big weddings, big dreams. The first two didn't last. But the third, Logan, was from a wealthy, well-connected family. Vanessa didn't just see love in him. She saw power and a future. Our parents were thrilled. They threw fancy dinners, bragged to the neighbors, printed new family photos. I got an invite too. I'm still her sister after all. But they warned me. Don't make it about you. Like I ever had. I booked a flight, RSVP'd for one, and cleared my schedule. Not for them, for me. On the morning of the wedding, my mom called and told me not to dress too businessy. "You're not giving a presentation, Juliet. Try to blend in." I smiled and said, "Sure. I'll try." But I didn't blend in. I wore black. Simple. No glitter. Hair tied back. Bare jewelry. I looked like myself. And in a room built to spotlight Vanessa, that was apparently too much. I arrived alone and on time. People noticed. Vanessa's new in-laws sipped champagne and gave me side glances. One aunt whispered, "Is that the single one?" Like it was something shameful. I didn't react. I've handled more pressure running startups than they can imagine. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. It hurts to feel like a stranger in your own family, like a ghost at the dinner table. Vanessa walked past me during pictures. She said, "Hi, Juliet." Without even looking at me. I found my seat. Quiet. Alone. Just like they expected. But they didn't expect Edward Sinclair. The ceremony was over the top, fancy, expensive, and clearly made for social media. Vanessa and Logan said their vows under a huge flower arch. There were drone cameras flying around, a string quartet playing, and even a flower girl flown in from a modeling agency. Everything was designed to look perfect. Even the guests in the aisle were chosen to look balanced for the photos. I stayed quiet. Clapped when I should. Smiled when expected. But the real drama started at the reception. The venue had been turned into a glittery evening party, with chandeliers, custom cocktails, and napkins with their initials. Everyone was seated at long tables that felt more like a company layout. I was stuck at the back, between two distant cousins who looked surprised I came alone. "I thought you'd have someone by now," one cousin said, stirring her drink. "You're so successful." It sounded like a compliment, but the pause between her words made it feel like a dig. Vanessa sat up front with Logan's family. Her new in-laws surrounded her like she was some big win. Logan's mom, Gloria, had a stiff smile, probably from too much Botox. She hadn't spoken to me, but I noticed her glancing my way. At one point, she leaned over to another guest and said, "She's the sister, right? The one who's always working." They laughed. Not loud but just enough. I got up and went to the bar. I was halfway through a ginger ale when I saw Vanessa walking toward me. Her smile looked forced. "I just wanted to check in," she said. "Make sure you're okay." "I'm fine. You seem, I don't know, distant." I blinked. "Vanessa, we haven't had a real conversation in 5 years." She laughed a little, trying to be nice. "Well, you're here now. That counts." I almost said something, like, did she even know where I lived or what I did now? But I didn't. She was already walking away. I went back to my table. That's when I heard Logan's uncle and cousin behind me. "Pretty but cold," one said. "She's the type who marries her job." "Probably thinks she deserves a medal for coming alone," the other joked. I stood still. For a second, I thought about leaving. I had my coat. My car wasn't far. I could leave and not look back. I didn't owe anyone here anything. Then something shifted in the room. From the main table, I heard a chair move. I turned to see Edward Sinclair, Logan's powerful uncle, stand up. He didn't dress to show off. No flashy jewelry or fake tan. Just a neat navy suit, silver hair, and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The room went quiet. He stepped forward, past Logan and Vanessa, past Gloria, who suddenly looked nervous. Then he bowed. A full, formal bow. The kind you give someone you truly respect. People gasped. Cameras clicked. Someone even dropped a fork. I didn't move. I couldn't. Edward stood tall again and walked over to me. "Miss Vaughn," he said calm and clear. "It's an honor to meet you. Your talk at the Zurich Summit changed how we handle tech across 3 companies. I wanted to thank you in person." I could feel the whole room looking at me differently now. Rethinking who I was. The woman they'd ignored all night was now being recognized by the most important man in the room. I smiled then, a small, quiet smile. "Thank you, Mr. Sinclair," I said. "The feeling is mutual." For the first time all night, the room went quiet. No laughs. Just attention. Edward Sinclair didn't sit back down. Instead, he asked a waiter for a glass of club soda and turned to me. "Would you mind walking with me for a moment?" I said yes, not because I was flattered, but because I knew something had shifted in that room, and I wanted it to stay that way. We stepped out onto the stone terrace, away from all the stares and whispers. Edward moved slowly, but with the quiet confidence of someone who's used to being noticed. "I meant what I said," he told me. "I recognized you the second you walked in." "That's funny," I said. "Most of your family didn't." He gave a soft laugh. "They wouldn't. They only know what they've been told. Vanessa's family, right? They've always cared more about appearances." I didn't need to reply. He already knew. Then he said, 3 years ago, your company launched a new model for decentralized AI data recovery. My firm was about to invest $180 million in a different company. But your presentation in Zurich changed our minds." I blinked. That information wasn't public. "No," he said. "But I make it my business to know who's actually making an impact." He looked at me carefully. Not just watching, but measuring. "I'm guessing Logan doesn't know," I said. Edward smiled slightly. "Logan can barely handle email. He's a nice enough kid, but he inherited everything. You, Miss Vaughn, built it all yourself." That hit me hard because it was true. While Vanessa was focused on looking perfect, I was in small offices eating cheap food, pitching to investors, writing code at 3 a.m. I didn't just survive. I built something real. But to my family, none of that mattered. It wasn't glamorous enough. Back inside, things had changed. People who had ignored me were suddenly watching. A few even stood when I walked in. Gloria looked annoyed. Logan looked nervous. Vanessa looked furious. She came up to me as I sat down. "What was that about?" she whispered, her fake smile still on her face. I looked at her, calm and cold. "That," I said, "was someone finally seeing what you never did." Her smile tightened. You couldn't let me have one day, could you? I almost laughed. One day? Vanessa, you've had a lifetime. All I did was show up. She didn't say anything. She turned and stormed off, her bouquet shaking in her hand. The speeches began. Toasts, stories, jokes. I stayed quiet. Edward sat beside me, saying a few quiet things now and then, most of which flew over the heads of the others. Then Logan's dad stood for the final toast. He said the usual stuff. Love, family, marriage. But then he looked at me. And of course, he added, raising his glass, to all the family here, even those who prefer boardrooms over ballrooms. Some people laughed. Edward didn't. He set his drink down and stood again. I'd like to add something, he said. It takes no real skill to inherit money. Even less to marry into it. But the woman beside me, Juliet Vaughn, has done neither. She built value from nothing. She earned respect in rooms you'll never even see. So if we're raising glasses tonight, I raise mine to her. Silence. No one laughed now. I didn't smile or look around for approval. I kept my eyes on the table, one hand on my glass. Because sometimes, being understood is more powerful than being praised. And in that moment, someone finally saw me. But it wasn't my family. They sat stiffly. Eyes down. Vanessa looked like she wanted to scream, but didn't want to ruin her wedding photos. My parents sat frozen, with fake smiles. My dad looked like he was trying to remember what I'd told him years ago about my company. My mom probably recalled someone once sent her an article about me, but she never read it. They had spent years turning me into a warning. Don't be like Juliet. Too cold. Too driven. Too alone. Now they couldn't keep up as the world applauded. But I wasn't looking for their applause. For a long time, I wanted them to see me. I wanted my mom to brag about my work like she bragged about Vanessa's new bags. I wanted my dad to ask about my business, not just if I was dating someone. But they never did. Not really. Not without a reason. So I stopped trying. I worked. I failed. I grew. I built a life with risk, with depth, with meaning. And I stopped waiting for their approval. This wedding was supposed to be one more scene in their perfect story. The successful daughter marries rich. The weird one shows up in black like a shadow from another life. But I'm not a shadow. I'm the one who built her own story. And if they can't see that, I'm done handing them the blueprint. Later that evening, after the music started again and the noise returned, my mother walked up to me. She moved carefully, like someone crossing thin ice. You look beautiful tonight, she said softly. Thank you, I said. She hesitated, then added, we didn't know about Zurich. Or Mr. Sinclair. I know. We're proud of you, Juliet. I looked her in the eyes. Why now? She looked confused. What do you mean? Are you proud because someone important finally said I matter? Or because you finally believe I do? She didn't answer. She just reached out and held my hand, like that could make up for years of silence. I let her hold it for a moment. Then I let go. As I walked out of the reception, Vanessa came after me. I didn't know Uncle Edward knew you, she said. I had no idea. You never asked, I said. You never asked about my life. Or my work. Or anything. That's not fair. No. It's just the truth. She looked down. You always made me feel like I wasn't enough. I tilted my head. Funny. You and Mom always made me feel like I was too much. That was the last thing we said to each other that night. I left alone. Just like I arrived. But this time, no one laughed. I didn't go back in. While the party went on, people dancing, drinking, laughing. I stood outside under the dark sky and watched the lights flicker through the windows. For the first time, I didn't feel like I didn't belong. I felt like I had left the stage before the show got fake. A few guests passed by me on the way to their cars. One nodded politely. A man I barely recognized came up nervously and said, I didn't know you were that Juliet Vaughn. I looked at him. You still don't. He walked away, mumbling an apology. Edward Sinclair came out a little later. His hands were in his coat pockets, his tie slightly loose. He stood beside me quietly. The silence was easy. Honest. I wasn't trying to make a scene, he said. I know, I said. You were correcting one. He smiled. Some lies need to be broken. Then, he surprised me. He offered me a partnership. Not just a polite gesture, but a real opportunity. He explained a new project he was starting. He wanted my input. My name on the founding documents. He wanted someone who had built from nothing, and could do it again with vision and strength. I didn't answer right away. Not because I was proud, but because I was finally choosing for myself. After a moment I said, "Let's talk Monday." He nodded and walked away. No big scene. No applause. Just respect, quiet and real. I drove home alone that night. No music. Window half open. The cold air hit my face, but I welcomed it. It reminded me that I was real. Not here because someone gave me permission, but because I built a place for myself. I never had the kind of family that cheered for me at graduations or cared about my achievements. But that night, I stopped needing them to. I stopped chasing the approval they never offered. And maybe that was the lesson I needed all along. The most powerful moment isn't when others finally cheer for you. It's when you realize you don't need them to. And that quiet, strong freedom, that was the most valuable thing I had ever given myself.